been the world champion, he's the only man to win the World Cup twice, and after a season spoiled by injury, he's back. Maurizio Fondriest, the Italian, wins yesterday's opening stage of the Kelloggs Tour of Britain in Glasgow and becomes the race's first leader. He's every reason to smile now. He holds on to a 4-second lead ahead of the Russian rider Vyacheslav Yekimov, followed by the Australian Scott Sunderland. And then the Ukrainian teammate of Fondriest, Alexander Gonchenkov, is fourth. Also in the top 10, 4 of the sport's big names: Olaf Ludwig of Germany, Johan Museo of Belgium, Phil Anderson, the defending champion from Australia, and Jan Zrada of Slovakia. The beautiful cathedral here in the city of Carlisle as the riders in the Kelloggs Tour of Britain now prepare for day 2 on their 500 miles journey south to Manchester. They're going into the Lake District for the first time, and the big climb is the Kirkstone Pass, known locally as the Struggle. Well, yesterday it was the British rider Ben Luckwell who established a lead, an early one at that, in the King of the Mountains competition when he broke away for the best part of 100 miles. Well, today it looks as though Scott Sunderland is the man most likely to put in the big challenge. Sunderland is just 3 points behind Luckwell in that competition, and today he'll try to take the overall lead. Here he is with Paul Sherwin.
Yeah, well, I started out yesterday with the plan of trying to get the King of the Mountains jersey, but then when Luckwell's away, taking the early points in the mountains, left me a bit of the task of trying to pick them up. But I'll see how it goes today. You know, I'm pretty confident I can maybe end up with the day in a mountain jersey, you know.
Luckwell, he must be a little bit tired as well after the race that he had yesterday.
Yeah, he's riding strong while he was out there in the first 100 kilometres or so there. But then, as you've seen on the last climb, he come back pretty quick. So I think today he's going to have pretty heavy legs here.
And on top of that, in this race, the decision's very often made over the climb. So will you look for a breakaway maybe over the Kirkstone Pass as well?
Yeah, I think there could be a breakaway, but it's depending on who's there, what teams have got riders in the front, because it's always the thing, you know, having the right mixture of riders and yeah, the lead riders from each team, because it's 100 kilometres from there to the finish and the last 30 kilometres flat. So when you've got guys like Olaf Ludwig and Savoda from Lampra, the 2 very fast sprinters, so I think it probably could be a mass sprint at the finish. But you know, you never know. You always got to be there just in case anyway.
Absolutely right indeed, Scott. At 10 o'clock sharp, and the flag is down as the riders head off for their first visit into the Lake District. Well, this is really a beautiful and picturesque route, Paul, but it is certainly a most difficult one with all of those climbs along the route today.
Well, those roads through the Lake Districts are going to be very difficult. We start off with Rattlebeck Hill, followed by Chestnut Hill. I think the big decision will come over the Kirkstone Pass, and then it's straight down to Blackpool.
Well, there's the beautiful castle here in Carlisle. The last the riders will see of that today as they go out now for the hills of the lakes. The red and white checkered flag pulled in. That's the end of the neutralised rollout. The racing is now underway, and the riders, not surprisingly, in no hurry, Paul, as we start in slightly overcast conditions.
Excellent conditions really for racing. A high of 21 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Cloudy and overcast, but again we could have sunny spells later on in the afternoon when we get down to the coast.
Well, we're only just out of town, but already the riders are beginning to get themselves warmed up here for a long day in the saddle. Mark McKay, Newbury's professional on Team Rally, at the front, looking over his shoulder there, just to see if the early attack has done anything at all. But one man has had a lot of trouble today, Paul, constantly at the back of the car. Here he is again, Martin Early.
Well, Martin's the leader of the rally squad at the moment, and I'm trying to see if he's still got his frame number there. It may well be he's changed his bicycle. The mechanic here just altering the saddle height.
First climb of the day, 7.5 miles covered at Rattlebeck Hill. And there's where we are on the left of our picture, and immediately an attack by Bo Hamburger on the right, and Scott Sunderland, his teammate, has taken his wheel. No sign at all of Ben Luckwell.
Well, there's no challenge at all. I'm quite sure Ben Luckwell's got very heavy legs this morning. This is what he wanted to do, Scott Sunderland, this morning. He set out yesterday to try and get the King of the Mountains. He goes past his teammate Bo Hamburger here, and it looks very much to me as if it's going to be a clean sweep by the TVM riders.
Well, it's almost a formality here for Sunderland. His teammate Hamburger's moved out of the way. Sunderland takes the line and the points, and that's a great start to the day for the Aussie. He may not have got the lead in the King of the Mountains yesterday, but he's going to be up there today. The result of Rattlebeck Hill: Sunderland wins from teammate Hamburger. Namvent from Norway is in third place. Dag Otto Lauritsen is in fourth.
Well, that's the Aussie. Scott Sunderland now confirmed as the leader of the King of the Mountains competition at the moment by 1 point.
Well, our man of the race, Alan Piper, has chosen the back of the race today as they descend Rattlebeck Hill.
We're just over Rattlebeck Hill, and there's a real feeling of apprehension in the bunch. There's not much talking going on. Even though they're riding slowly, everybody's wary of what's coming up. They've been talking about this hill up further, 25%, and they're all thinking, are my legs good enough? Can I get over the top with the front riders? It's the calm before the storm. Let's see what happens.
And we can't wait, and a welcome to the Tour of Great Britain as it now approaches deep into the heart of the Lake District. The field is still all together. Behind them is Rattlebeck Hill. Chestnut Hill is next on the horizon, and then the climb of Kirkstone Pass. And all of the field are back together again after a number of attacks this morning. There's the next obstacle, Paul, the little climb of Chestnut Hill, but it's quite a steep one.
It's a tough little climb, especially when we get nearer to the top. This is Ben Luckwell, the leader of the Pop-Tarts King of the Mountains competition this morning. He's got a chance now to try and take the lead back from Scott Sunderland. As we go further up the hill, let's see if he does push that challenge.
Well, there's the field all together as they've been, in fact, throughout. That's Marco Vermey, who at one stage held the last spot in the Tour de France before he retired, as he approaches now the top of the climb here at Chestnut Hill, coming around about 27 miles covered. And Chris Walker taking on Scott Sunderland here. They're looking around to see where the challenge is coming from, but Sunderland is having a great start to the day. His second hill in as many climbs this morning, and Chris Walker continues, and I think, Paul, he's gone up on the attack. Let's have a look at the result of the climb. So another win for Scott Sunderland gives him a clear lead in the King of the Mountains now. Chris Walker second, and Kalin is third, first time in Britain for him, and Marco Vermey comes after him. And there has been an attack, Paul, and Walker was the man who started it, and it looks like Chris Lillywhite has joined him on the right.
Well, that was an excellent move. This is Chris Lillywhite on the front here, followed by Chris Walker, then Marco Vermey, the Dutchman, go a little bit further down line. This is dangerous. That looks to me like Sporada. Boam, Namvent, Yates is there too as we go a little bit further down, and Phil Anderson, #1, last year's defending champion.
And that's probably the reason, Paul, that Yekimov's Word Perfect team, and indeed the Lamprey team here of the race leader Fondriest, have gone straight to the front of the bunch now to try and close that attack down.
Well, I'm surprised to see the Lamprey team doing so much of a chase there, because in fact they've got Gonchenkov in the front, and that is a dangerous move for the riders. That's why Word Perfect got pressure on. They obviously think with the time trial coming up that we can get away with a Word Perfect win there for Ekimov.
Well, Alan Piper is up with the leaders, and he can explain to us the tactics. Alan.
We can see the Motorola team forcing the race behind. They really haven't got a winner with Steve Swart, who got dropped in the final kilometres yesterday. Phil Anderson and Sean Yates got away over the top of Chester Hill. Motorola want to get somebody up the front, but the teams of Lamprey and Word Perfect are blocking it down. They want Fondriest and Ekimov up the front, and they're not going to let anything get away. Let's see what happens on the big hill soon.
Well, you could see over the shoulder of Alan Piper there as he was speaking, the chase down was coming fast and furiously, because they recognised that this really was the most serious attack with last year's winner in the breakaway, and the gap has closed right down. As Sean Yates sits at the back, he took a sly look over his shoulder there. He saw them coming and he shut down. So the race has come together, and the next stop now will be the big sprint in Grasmere. And that's coming on the race route today at just under 40 miles. It's the first bonus sprint of the day. The Ordnance Survey hotspot is what they call it. And just look at this now as Verada leads out Gonchenkov. Two riders going clear for the Lamprey team, looking for those little time bonuses on the line that could prove so much. Mark Walsham is taking them on, the English rider. He's a very fast finisher indeed, Mark Walsham. He's got the inside. But right on the line, it's a win for Gonchenkov, and he takes the sprint. And let's have a look at that. Indeed, Alexander Gonchenkov, the rider who fell in that nasty crash in the Tour de France, Armentier, back in action, getting ahead as Verada and Walsham. Well, Paul, the next stop is the big climb of the day, and look at the people on it, the Kirkstone Pass. The riders are in the town of Ambleside, and my goodness me, there's been a crash on the corner here in Ambleside. That is Anderson, who's in pain on the left of the road. The race doctor is here. Brian Smith, the British champion, has a cut left arm, and that is Adrie van der Poel on the floor.
Well, that's a disastrous crash, especially in this area too, because those dry stone walls don't move at all. This looks to me like Kozlatin, the rider from Chazal there, just off the side of the road. It's very, very dangerous if you go down under circumstances like this, and it must have been just as they were coming to the bottom of the climb that this crash happened. Everyone was nervous.
Well, that's a sad sight indeed. Phil Anderson clearly in pain, but being pushed back into the fray. They're on the climb of Kirkstone Pass. Adrie van der Poel looks as though it's the end for him, as the race doctor cares for him, but he, I think, is out. And in fact, it looks to me as though Adrie van der Poel is complaining that there was a vehicle involved in this crash, and he's indicated across the road that the vehicle over there, I think, was on the move as they came up towards that sharp turn onto the climb itself. This is Brian Smith, and he really does have a very, very badly torn left elbow there.
Looks very much as if he's actually cut a vein in his arm there, and this is still Kozletine receiving some kind of medication from the doctor here. He's got a very badly injured knee, which looks as if it's swelling quite a lot. These two riders look to me as if they're not going to get up and leave.
And just look at this, Adrie van der Poel, in fact, still seems to be complaining about the motor vehicle now parked at an angle on the other side of the road. And this, in fact, indicates the race do not want to continue on here, Paul, as if they want to wait for the riders behind.
Well, they'll call a truce. That's the camaraderie of professional riders. They don't want to take advantage of somebody else's misadventure, so they will shut the race down and let it all come back together. They really won't want to take advantage of somebody else's misfortune. Brian Smith here looks to me as if he's having a tourniquet put on his arm by the race doctor there, who's just checking out his hands at the moment. Just goes to show the courage of some of these professional riders. And we're now on the slopes of Kirkstone Pass, and I think, as you can see here, there definitely is some kind of a truce, because the race hasn't split up at all. In fact, Scott Sunderland at the front in the green jersey here, just taking advantage to get a few more points.
Well, he's taken the sprint with almost the entire field there. And in fact, this is the result of the climb. Sunderland gets his third win of the day in the mountains. Vermeij is second, and Van Lanker, Eric Van Lanker from Word Perfect, takes third place. So the overall situation at the end of today, Sunderland now has built himself a clear lead ahead of Ben Luckwell, who was the leader this morning, and Fondriest is in third place. But the story, of course, is the accident at the bottom of the climb, and this is Phil Anderson as he struggles on the way up the climb to the cheers of the crowd with his injuries. And on this climb, in fact, the racer announced the retirement of Adrie van der Poel and indeed of Oleg Kozletine. So this indeed is a sad sight. The last year's winner trying to get back in. Let's go to Alan with Brian Smith.
So how are you feeling, Brian, after that crash?
Oh, my rail's down, and I've sliced a large piece off my arm here. I've got a tourniquet on it. I just hope it holds up for the finish, you know, so I can start tomorrow.
And so as we look out across Lake Windermere, we'll take a short break, but when we come back, we'll report on how the day's dramatic events continue to unfold. And welcome back to the Kelloggs Tour of Britain. And the accident we saw at Ambleside, apparently caused by a motorist moving towards the riders, has provoked a reaction, and a sad one at that, from the field. After riding at a gentle pace, the racers now stopped 33 miles from Blackpool, and they've elected last year's winner Phil Anderson, injured in the crash, to make this protest.
There was an oncoming car which swung into the peloton. Luckily, it didn't hit anybody, but it caused quite a swerve in the bunch. And we were travelling at quite a high speed just before the crucial point of the day, crucial mountain of the day, and you know, I was one of the victims of the crash. Fortunately, I'm still riding. I did have some thoughts about stopping, but still, you know, I think it's an example of I don't know, just some bad police work, or you know, I think the organisation has to take some responsibility and maybe increase the policing of the race, and you know, to make sure that this problem doesn't happen. There's a lot more police, and I think that's the only solution. You know, if racing on this level is going to continue in Britain, I think we have to increase the number of police controlling the race.
Well, although one has to feel sympathy for the riders, it's also a very difficult job for the British police force, and the man in charge of the escort is Chief Inspector Andy Relf.
Our primary responsibility is trying to create a safe envelope through which the race can pass. Over many years now, we've tried and pioneered the scheme because we cannot possibly employ the number of officers that would be necessary to put one on every junction. So we have this system of a rolling closure where officers close down as the race approaches and open it immediately afterwards. That has the advantage, of course, of not obstructing traffic for too long, and generally can cope very well by making all traffic stationary. But of course that does rely utterly upon people complying with the instructions of police officers. And I understand today, I don't know the full circumstances, but I will get those circumstances from my officers, that several officers were bypassed by the driver of a vehicle who refused to stop, even physically pushing his way past them. In those circumstances, it is enormously difficult for any police officer to deal with an incident, and we have to trust upon people complying with our instructions.
What's going to happen now with the riders for the future of the race this week?
Well, we'd definitely like to see an improving on the policing of the race, on the controlling of the traffic, and you know, we want to get on with the bike race. And I hope, you know, today I hope it doesn't affect my outcome of the race. I came here with ambition to try and win the race, and unfortunately I've got some pretty bad injuries, and you know, I hope I can finish with the field today, and then we'll just take it on from there. But I think, you know, everybody's eager to race. We just want to you know, have a safe race here.
Well, we all echo Phil Anderson's sentiments there, but it should be pointed out, not every rider wanted to support that stoppage, and neither did all of the team's managers. Remember, though, the security of the race route is the responsibility of the police, and they have a very good safety record so far. Let's hope now, for the rest of the week, it will be trouble-free, Paul.
Well, let's hope that it is, and the riders getting underway again, and I'm sure they will race quite rapidly down to Blackpool, because it reminds me of a few years ago when I was riding in the Tour de France, 1978, in fact, and there was a strike there because of conditions that the riders were put under, and this kind of thing does happen occasionally, but, you know, the race must go on.
Well, there's a breakaway going clear. We've now moved to the outskirts of Blackpool. We're in St. Michael, about 15 miles from the finish, and indeed, this is John Clay of Great Britain on the attack. So Clay going clear, and the main field are ignoring John Clay. Now, they'll be unwise to do this because this rider is a very accomplished British professional rider. And the one man who knows all about the tactics now being displayed, well, of course, it's Alan Piper.
Well, John Clay's out in the front, giving it everything he's got. Maurizio Fondri's Lamprey team is chasing with two things to achieve. One is for the sprint, Jans Verada, a very fast sprinter. And the other thing is to keep Fondrias in the lead. He's only got a few seconds. It's a double header. Let's see if Lamprey can pull it off.
Well, so often, Paul, this race comes down to a battle of seconds over the years, and John Clay has got 51 of them right now, and that is a good lead at this stage of the race. We're on the outskirts of Blackpool.
It's an excellent lead. You can see 51 seconds there, confirmation on the blackboard, but there's a lot of work being done at the back here, especially by the Lamprey team, who would like to get it all back together for Jans Verada. Superb finisher, but let's not forget Olaf Ludwig, who was so much trying to get a victory yesterday with his telecom team, did all the work at the end trying to catch those breakaways. Maybe they can get it back together again and launch Ludwig into victory.
Well, there is our destination today, the beautiful shot of Blackpool Tower, and if you look right down, they look like ants from the helicopter, don't they? But there is a massive crowd here on the long run-in to the finish, and it wouldn't surprise me if we're talking of 40 to 50,000 people, and Clay is hanging on, but his gap all of the time, according to the race radio, is coming down, and the last gap we had, it was down to around about 25 seconds, and this, Paul, is the sort of finish he doesn't want, and there's the field.
They're really boring down on him. It's a long, straight finish down here into Blackpool, you know, and once they get onto the straight roads, they will see him in front of them, and if they can almost reach out and touch him. Clay now starting to suffer a little bit, looking over his shoulder to see what the gap is. If we could just look back there, in fact, there they are. They're right on him.
Well, this has been a superb attack by John Clay, and they gave him a long lead, almost a minute, but they're on him now. It's the telecom team who are chasing him down, and one of the team has gone from the other side. I think it was Aldag. Rolf Aldag has gone, and I think also he's gone clear. There's Clay. He's gone straight by him. Clay surrendered, and that's a shame, about 1.5 kilometres from the line.
A great move by the telecom team, because in fact what they've done now is they have shut down, but one man who knows this kind of move, this looks to me very much like Herman Frison from the Lotto squad. An excellent tactical move by these two riders, because now the riders have chased so hard, they may just get a slowing down in the main field and just the gap they need to pull off the victory.
Well, they've reached the tower, but you go straight through the tower, I'm afraid, and on for about another kilometre or so. So it's still a long way. We're looking at yards here now as Aldag looks over to Frison for some help, and it's the Lamprey team of Fondriest who's now bringing the race back together again.
In fact, as well, the TVM squad were coming up there too. They really are pulling up the stops to try and get those two riders back, and in fact Aldag then was not contributing at all, and it's all back together.
So it's going to be a sprinters race today, and we know we really do have some of the fastest men in the world here in the Kellogg's Tour this year, and I'm not surprised that the men from German Telekom here are now trying to bring the man in second place, Olaf Ludwig, through for the victory. The victory he was denied, and he tried many times in the Tour de France, but Ludwig now has the wheel of a teammate as they start to switch across the road. And look at this now, Ludwig's dive to our left of the picture, and there's some riders followed him there, including Malcolm Elliott in the white jersey and the yellow helmet. Elliott's going through too. The other pack comes in from the far right of the course, and Ludwig's still got the head of the field. But in fact, look at this now, Veenstra is coming up very quickly, so too Jan Verade. That was a tight one on the line, but my goodness me, I think, you know, the Dutchman, Wiebren Veenstra from the Koolstrop team, has taken the victory. Can you believe that?
Well, as we look here at Olaf Ludwig, it looks as if he'd got an ideal move to the line there, but you can just see that it was Wiebren Veenstra came past him just on the line.
So the 8th victory of the season for the Dutchman, and there was inches in it. Ludwig again second, he had a few of those in the Tour de France. Jan Verade finished in 3rd. Malcolm Elliott finally blacked out there in 4th place. Of the other big names, Anderson, despite his injuries, is 24th, and Brian Smith, despite that tourniquet, finished in 36th place. Yekimov, 2nd overall, 77th. But the winner today, last time I saw him on the winner's podium, was in the Tour du Pont. He won the opening stage there in the United States in May. Win number 8 for him. Overall, no change really. Fondriest keeps his 4-second advantage over Yekimov today. Scott Sunderland is in 3rd, and Alexander Gonchenkov is in 4th. Of the other big names, Veenstra, though, is now up into 6th place. Anderson is 16th, Smith 61st. Last man overall now is Rob Reynolds-Jones, and he's in 100th place. The smiles on the face there of the yellow jersey, but also on Ben Luckwell on the right of the picture in pink. He kept his lead in the overall. So let's join Paul Sherwin now with Phil Anderson and Veenstra.
Well, after the protest, the riders really raced in earnest. The run into Blackpool was very rapid, wasn't it?
Yeah, everybody was going for a field sprint, so mostly the speed is higher than normal. So everybody was a little bit nervous after that stop. So
happy to get a good win here, because that was a fantastic win. All the top sprinters were fighting out. It's Verade, Ludwig, and yourself.
Yeah, it's always nice to win, and especially when they're good sprinters. If you win, then it's a little bit extra, so I'm very happy.
Well, Phil, it's been a tough day for everybody, and I know you're about to get into the ambulance, but how does your body feel at the moment?
The biggest concern is my elbow. I can't put much pressure on it. You know, I did the last 100 kilometers more or less, you know, with one arm. It was pretty hard, but you know, go and see how it is. I got to get some stitches and maybe an x-ray, and we'll see how it is in the morning.
It's very sad, because you've won 2 Kellogg's Tour of Britons, and we were looking to you to possibly get a hat-trick and take a 3rd victory. Do you think you'll be able to carry on?
I don't know. I mean, I nearly stopped today. It might be a bit beyond me this year. I will have to see.
Well, the latest news from the hospital tonight is that Phil Anderson has been stitched in both his arm and his side, and that very nasty cut on the arm of Brian Smith, that has been stitched as well. But both are confident they can take the start tomorrow. It's a double dose for the riders too. It begins with a 7.8 miles individual time trial in Bolton, and then the short drive to the city of Liverpool for a 1.5-hour circuit race in the afternoon. Now, notwithstanding what happened today, do remember that cycle racing can be dangerous. We want everybody to enjoy the situation, and the vast majority of you on the roads today certainly did that. Until tomorrow night at 8:30, goodbye.